Hey, welcome to another episode of Inquiring Minds. I am Steve Harper, and with me, as always, is my co-host Donna Carlin. Donna, how are you doing today?
I'm really good. And yourself?
Good. I'm excited for today's conversation. What are we exploring in this episode?
So I was thinking about this. Yeah, we're definitely winging it, not like we don't always wing it. So as you know, I'm writing multiple books because I got myself into a bind, and it's like 9 books this year. So I'm writing one on radical responsibility. Obviously, it's from a business context because that's who Book Boone is. But I'm looking from a personal perspective, period. Like it could be personal, company wise, doesn't matter. And I'm writing about radical responsibility, about companies being responsible to the globe, not only, for the
Hmm.
bottom line and to sustain their business and support their workers, obviously. Um, but also the ripple effect, Mr. King of the Ripple, of like how does what they do impact the world? So I'm looking at that radical responsibility and how decision making really goes beyond the actual company. And then I'm saying to myself, how does that apply to individuals? We're watching the world burn up. I mean, I've never seen so many wildfires hit the globe, especially in the cold north of Canada, Northwest Territories. There's hundreds of fires happening and evacuations
Yep.
going on. It's just and they're popping up through multiple seasons. There's no season anymore. In Ottawa over the summer, we had more tornado warnings and tornado hits than I think we've had in the last 10 years. So, because it's not a tornado center. So, we're looking at what is responsibility and what we call greenwashing. In other words, we talk about climate change, but we don't do anything personally to change it. And I find that we're sitting around a table in somebody's dining room or kitchen or in a restaurant with friends, and we're discussing what's happening to the world and how it's scary and how it bothers us. What if we personally changed in our habits to turn it around? And
Mm.
very few of us, myself included, we recycle all of that stuff. That's not it. What is it that we could personally do to turn this around? And I would like to have those conversations around the table. What is it that I could do that would have any kind of effect on global warming? And that's within my power to do. And I wanted
Yeah.
to throw that out to you because I think this is an important conversation for us to all have and to have that question in our minds. What is it that I'm doing that is easy for me to change that would in some way, shape, or form impact the planet?
Yeah.
And start there. So I'm throwing it over to you to see what you think about that.
Well, a good friend of mine and fellow Rippler, Sandy Stewart, is she's changed her entire business model to focus on sustainable business, right? Helping educate from the places that we spend the vast majority of our time, which is 80% or more, is in our work environments, working for companies that are working towards corporate solutions to this problem, right? There's obviously a big implication about climate change having come from vast different industries, right? But the fact that there are organizations that are completely shifting and changing their focus and trying to be a part of the solution and not continuing to add and be a part of the problem. I really respect and admire that this has become a true passion for her. She's taking lessons that are being implemented at the global level with major corporations and bringing that back down to small to medium sized businesses and helping educate them that this is important, it's critical. And it's also very much in alignment with what the new workforce wants, right? They want to work for an organization that has a commitment to that social responsibility, right? And
Mhm.
that's an important factor. There's a lot of research that's been done about it's higher up on the list than even salary, the money that they make. They want to know that they're working for socially responsible organizations that are all working to try and solve this problem. And I think we're at a point, like you said, that we can't continue to ignore it. But how much of what we say we want to do and change is just lip service? And so the challenge I pose to anybody who might hear this is how big a problem are you in, adding to this overall challenge that we're facing? Or what are you doing on a daily, consistent basis? Like you said, recycling. Now, nobody thinks about recycling because, almost everybody does it and, has fallen in line, but there's dozens of other things that we should be doing. Whether it's, for my software company, we've reduced, our impact on emissions because we're having our folks stay at home more than come into the office. We want them to not have to drive. We don't want them to have to expend, not only their time is sitting in traffic coming to the office, but that's our small one of many small little contributions we do. But it takes strategic thinking. But I see people that complain about it, but then will toss a plastic bottle in the trash can as they're leaving the restaurant where we just had coffee or a meeting. Uh, that we have to make it part of our overall presence, right? Everything we do, from picking up that piece of trash that everybody's walked by but you aren't, and you're going to throw it away, to cutting back our brush so that we don't create more of a fire danger and hazard. The challenge I see with a lot of people is our houses are on fire, quite literally, and nobody's paying attention to any place but the kitchen table. And we're still sitting here and we're not doing anything about it. And we have to we have to do more than pay it lip service. We have to be willing to put our money where our mouth is, invest in organizations that are committed to solving the problem with our own dollars, with our own time, and even with where we put our employment. And we have to be willing to step up to the plate to start having these conversations in a more collaborative, connected way, instead of it being so adversarial and so challenging for people to have a mutual discussion about it. What can we do collectively as a neighborhood or as a community? You and I were talking about how your neighbors do everything a few episodes ago to get together and clean up the neighborhood and make things nice. And this is a coming together thing that's happened since the tornado hit your neighborhood. And it's a community thing and people feel pride in it, and it's an opportunity for fellowship and everyone to really get together and get to know each other a little bit better and do something good in the process. Well, what if we just did that instead of once or twice a year? We did that once a month, or we found an avenue where our corporations could actually take a day off and go contribute to something significant within our local habitats, our communities. That's how change is going to happen. It's going to take seeing some of this in motion, not just talking about it, but actually stepping up to the plate to actually do something about it as individuals, as families, as companies, and as our entire network.
I think we have a lot of really good ideas that would be very easy to implement. There's no question. The question that comes to my mind, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to frame it. What are the questions we need to ask ourselves as reality checks so we remember to do this stuff? You know what I mean? It's like, what do we need to shift in order to have the conversations about what we could do rather than just about the effect or the impact of the fires and everything else that's going on. The second thing that comes to mind is you say the words climate change, and there's so many people who will fight back saying there's no climate change. They'll cite like a year, 15 years ago when they had the same kind of very volatile weather. These are trends. These are tracked scientifically, and I don't want to get into is it true or not true of conversation with somebody around a table. I want to come to an agreement that we could both agree that the world is burning up, that there's more fires than ever before, for example. So I don't care if you want to call it climate change or anything else, that it's not climate change, it is climate change. How do we deal with it so it doesn't happen as frequently anymore? What control do we have to do it and have that conversation to steer away from the contentious, argumentative conversation about what it's called and what's causing it or any political affiliation to it, and instead talk about, is this what you want? Is this what you want for your children and their subsequent children? And how are we stewards for the planet? Because we don't own it. We have to keep it
Well,
safe for the next generation and those to come.
Well, I think a couple of things you said that really strike me is the words climate change is triggering in any conversation with a lot of people because there's such diverse and very adversarial responses to that. You either believe it, you don't believe it, or, because you're bringing it up, you're a global, planet nut or whatever. I think we have to find some safer ways to bring that up and to have that conversation. But I think it actually starts with our own individual personal responsibility. When I talk to my audience about the ripple effect, we have a ripple effect in everything we do, right? In every conversation, every decision, every interaction we have, and in how we invest our energy and our efforts every single day. And we have that determination at the very beginning of the day as to whether we're going to make a positive difference or we're not. Are we going to walk by that piece of trash and throw it away when nobody else is doing it, or do we just leave it for somebody else to deal with? Are we going to, engage, in behavior that's going to potentially help impact our footprint, our our impact on the planet, our individual contribution to the footprint, the carbon footprint. Are we willing to take that stand and do something? There are things that start with us internally that actually have to change the conversation in our own heads. And then what I propose to folks when they're talking about creating a ripple, I ask them to go through at the end of their day and just cite one example as they lay their head on the pillow. Did I make a difference today? Did I create a positive ripple or did I create a negative ripple? And I do it in the context of relationships and connection, but the same thing can be expanded to, did I make a difference? Did I help the planet or hurt the planet today? That's one way. And then I think ultimately at the end of the day, you find a different way to bring this up. You know, I think people have such a visceral reaction to the climate change conversation because you think as an individual you can't make a difference. And we know for a fact that's simply not true. But in a big challenge, it's super hard to figure out where you fit within that. But the piece would be, wouldn't you want this to be a better neighborhood? Wouldn't you want this to be someplace everybody drives in and is proud of? Or as we're enjoying this, hike and bike trail, wouldn't it be important for you to be out there without seeing some, fast food wrapper or somebody leaving their bottle or Coke? How about we do something together collectively to figure out how to keep that the way that we want it as individuals for us, for our own consumption, and do it at the same time to the benefit of other people? I think it's addressing the problem in a subtler, more, I won't say sneakier way, but a more uh, appetizing way for people to get engaged in conversation. Because I think once somebody's actually picked up a piece of trash in their local community, they now own it. And I tell people this all the time. The difference between investment is, are you renting here or are you owning here? Are you living? Do you own the environment you're around? And that's true for corporations, it's teams, and all the dynamics. If you don't have a commitment to be a permanent presence, at least right here, right now. Not saying you have to, be here for 20 years, but this is your trail, it's your neighborhood, it's your corporation, it's your environment, and you have the impact, the ability to make an impact on it in a positive way. So would you step up and do it? And if I'll do it and you'll do it, maybe there's two other people we can go and we'll get to do it. And then we'll find four more people that will go and get to do it. And there you create a movement as
Yeah,
opposed to, well, no, no. And I'm just going to throw this out there for just because it struck me as like, wouldn't you want the planet to be better for your kids and your grandkids? I've seen it happen so many times where people put that out, and that's the guilt factor. Like, you are a horrible person for not doing something that's going to impact your grandkids, and of course you're like, of now you've just drawn a line in the sand, right? But as opposed to like, wouldn't it be great that our kids don't have to deal with this in 10 years, or our grandkids are watching the benefits of the efforts that we all put forward today to make this a better, cleaner environment? To me, that sounds like a good idea. What about you? Well, of course. Well, I don't want to look like a jerk. So, yeah. Okay. Well, what are we going to do about it together? And so I think it comes down to some strategic languaging and approaches to create that positive change you want to see in other people by showing them an example of how the positive change is happening within you.
And you know what? You don't have to wait until disaster hits to make a positive contribution to the planet.
Nope. Nope.
I mean, seriously, what if we had, started taking care of the planet many, many, many years ago? We wouldn't be at the level that we're at. What's to say that clean sheet of paper, we want to start paying attention to how we coexist with this finite space. It's not infinite. It's a finite amount of space with a finite amount of water and air and everything else. And it's for us to take care of it to sustain future generations, regardless of what's happening. So, how do we change those habits? What are the questions what is the conversation we need to have with ourselves? I can't remember if it was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, we did a show on what you do matters. What you do right
Hmm.
now matters. What you do today matters. And that goes for the habits that we want to create. What we do right now, what we say to ourselves right now matters. So what are you going to do that matters in a really good way starting right now? That's my question that I want to leave for our listeners.
And it's a great question because I think, at the end of the day, we all have the ability to make an impact. We may not feel it, we may not recognize it. It may seem like it is one insignificant act amongst a very massive problem, but it's one more act that wasn't done yesterday. And it might just inspire somebody who saw you do that or saw you or is inspired by your efforts to want to do it too. And just like I was saying, two becomes four, four becomes eight, eight becomes, 16, and then my math skills go way off, the track at that point. But the reality is the compound interest of us all committing to do something, our own little part, a whole bunch of little parts end up being a sum of a big part. And that's part of the change. But I still maintain what you do matters. What you do and how you do it matters. But you need to inspire by your actions, not just your words, right? Because in most cases, especially around this topic, it's like getting somebody to change political affiliations. It's you're barking up the wrong tree. You're trying to push the boulder up the wrong hill. But if you can show them and you're not looking for the pat on the back or the recognition for how great you are. It's just I'm showing up to do my part. It's my responsibility to be the best possible citizen I can be to this planet. And so that's my little thing. What's yours? What do you guys do? And just engage that conversation and see where that conversation goes. I just feel like, when we say, oh my God, can you believe, everything's happening? Then people choose sides. And, once you've done that and the divisiveness is out there, it's hard to ever get on the same page.
And how do we integrate that into the schools? That's the other thing that hit me. There's so often kids are walking home from school, they toss trash on your lawn. They think that it's a garbage can. Like, how do we instill that sense of pride in our community, in our globe, to kids at the school age, so that they are brought up with a value to actually honor that which is around us, and you take your empty cup home and throw it out when you get home, rather than toss it on the first lawn that comes your way, whether or not it's empty, which is the second pet peeve of mine. So, you know, how do we bring it into the school systems and instill this sense of stewardship in the kids? I think that's a great place for it to start before it becomes political, where it comes to sustainability. I think that's something for us to think about. That's another question I'm throwing
Totally.
out to our listeners. Say, how do you instill it at the school level? How do you encourage teachers to incorporate or integrate it into the curriculum in some way?
Yeah, I mean, we could do, and we should, because we could go off on a big tangent on that topic alone. But I mean, I think my short answer is you have to teach personal responsibility. and have that personal worth, and then explain how that personal worth translates into showing and respecting somebody else's personal worth, and then for that to expand beyond to understand that we have a personal investment in the communities we live in, right? You make an investment here first, then I make an investment with my classmates and my teachers and my school community, and then my larger piece of the community, my neighborhood, my city, showing and having pride and responsibility in why, whether you're 5 years old or you're 19 years old, you have a responsibility to to each of these areas. I think is a really critical factor, and we have gotten away from that. But I say we put a pin in that one for a future episode because it is one that we should talk about because I think it has to be taught, and it can be learned.
Hmm.
It just has to be implemented. That's the key. So that's my 3 cents on that one for the short lesson. So.
That's good.
Well, this is a great one. This is a little bit of a different topic than we normally explore, but it has applicability to all of us that are watching or part of this show. And so, Donna, how could people give us their 3 cents on this topic and their ideas, and obviously answer the question you suggested, and what's the best way for them to do that?
The best way is to join our Facebook group, Inquiring Minds with Donna Carlin and Steve Harper. Share with us what you got out of the show, what your 3 cents are, and any topics you'd like us to discuss. We would really love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Well, we greatly appreciate it. We'll be back again next week with another episode of Inquiring Minds. But until then, Donna, have a great rest of your day.
You too.